Hello everyone, this is Joseph. Today we're diving into n8n, one of the most powerful automation tools out there. If you've ever wished you could automate hours of work into just some minutes, for instance, sending following up mails to your clients, organizing files, or getting data from public APIs and structuring it right away, then this video is for you. So here's what we will cover. First, the basics of n8n and how it compares to other platforms like Zapier and Make. Second, a quick walkthrough through the dashboard so you can understand and you can start from the very beginning to work on your own. And then 3 demo workflows so you understand the full basics of n8n. With that said, let's get started. Alright, so now let's try to understand better what's n8n. n8n comes from Nodemation, that basically is the merging of the word node and the word automation. And this is two of the core principles of this kind of tools. Basically, we have different nodes and we want to automate a process. All right. So now let's just Google here n8n and we go to the landing page. The main idea, first of all, it is open source. So all the code is on GitHub and you can see it has already so many stars right now. And then you can see here a simple workflow to automate a process, okay? So in this case, what we see is that we have different nodes, each of them corresponding to a different application or just having a different purpose, and then arrows between them in order to determine the actions and how they are related to each other. So that's one of the most basic things for these kind of tools. And for those of you who are not familiar with the world, there's like many players. So the first player would be IFTTT, is based for IoT and personal automation. So it is quite easy to begin with. It's easy to learn, but it has a lot of limitations. And then we have like the 2 other options that are more similar to the one we're gonna learn today. Okay, the first one is Zapier. Zapier, it's the tool that is ideal for the beginners. It's quite easy to understand and to learn. And the main problem it has is that the simplicity, okay? Most of its workflows are quite simple and it is quite expensive. So whenever we try to push this tool a little bit harder, a little bit further, we hit a limit on the payment. As you will see here, the diagrams in Zapier are quite similar to the ones that we just saw from n8n. And then we would have Make. In this case, Make is more complex. It's more complex to understand as well. It allows us to do more sophisticated workflows, but it's still a paid service. So it's not open source and we cannot just have like a self-hosting solution. So we would still have the problem of the pricing. And again, if we go check like a simple automation, for instance, this is send a Gmail email from a new Google Sheet Pro, you would see that the diagram is quite similar. We have like different nodes and arrows between them. So n8n basically combines the best of both worlds of Zapier and Make. It allows us to go for easy workflows as Zapier. It allows us to push it a little bit farther and make like more complicated workflows just as Make. But still, we are not locked into a paid service, so we can just take our automation, take our workflow and self-host it. All right, so that's the most important characteristic of n8n and why it is becoming so popular. And this brings us to one of the biggest decisions when working with n8n. As it is an open source, we can choose to self-host it or to use their own cloud-based solution. So when using their own cloud-based solution, it is associated to a payment, of course, but it simplifies the whole process and it handles the escalation of the workflow for you. And as we will see later, it's just clicking a button. On the other hand, if you prefer having like full control of the whole process and you prefer having like a cheaper solution on the long term, you can still self-host it in your own server or on your own machine. So this basically depends on your main ideas and on your main preference for the project. Now, the next step is just getting started with the tool and getting started basically using it. So the first thing, of course, is just signing up if you don't have an account yet. And to do so, just go to the Get Start button here. In my case, I'm just gonna sign in using my account. And now I will get this first view. This is actually not important. We just need to click the Open Instance button here. And this will bring me to my n8n instance. All right. It is important before going deeper that now we're using the web-based solution of n8n. So basically, first we have a free trial of 14 days for free, but then we should pay to use this. So in case you want to self-host, you can install n8n into your local machine, and a local web editor would open. Okay, it is still web-based, but it would be running in your local machine and not on the cloud, basically. All right, so we will do this demo today using the web-based interface. So here you can see like an overview of all my workflows. And then I have like a personal space. Here I can have like some workflows. As you see right now, I don't have any. And then we can have some projects that organize the workflows. Okay, you can see here I have a DataCamp demo project. Another important thing is like the credentials. The credentials here is I can just define API keys or some secrets in order to keep this data safely stored within my n8n environment. All right. And the most important thing we'll use, like we could actually like create a new credential here and just like select whatever, I don't know, like OpenAI, for instance, select the service we want and then give the token and everything. But you will see that it is so easy to just like keep adding these credentials when just creating our own workflow. The most important interface when using n8n basically is the workflow interface. Okay, the workflow itself is where the diagrams where we just construct and create these diagrams that contain the nodes and the arrows to generate these automations of processes. Okay, so if we go to create a workflow in this button here, you will get started with the workflow interface. Okay, in this case, we start with a blank page and you can see there's like a box here with add first step. So in this case, if we just press this button, we will have all the different nodes that we can choose. Okay, there's like a trigger manually. So for instance, it's a node that we can just activate it to activate the whole process we're going to construct. And basically it is really useful when testing. And you see there's like so many more. Like for instance, imagine Gmail. So we can just go to the Gmail app and here we have 26 actions. Okay, add label to message, delete a message, get many messages. Okay, but we can go to Sheets that we will be using today, to Sheets, Google Sheets, and here we have like different actions as well. And actually you can check whatever application you consider because there's so many integrations. There's OpenAI, for instance, there's Telegram as well. So just play a little bit with them and just learn all the nodes that there are. Okay, so if we just select the trigger manually, we can just drag and drop this here and we will get started with a first node and an arrow. Okay, so basically these workflows just work from left to right. This means that the nodes from the left will activate the nodes to the right. Okay, and the data will flow this direction as well. We will see later. And now it appears the execute workflow button here. So if I execute it, it will execute the trigger and it will say that the workflow executed successfully. Basically, it means that everything worked properly and there's just one node. So it's only the trigger we are activating. Okay, with this arrow here, we can just move it anywhere else. So we could actually generate another node here. And let's say, for instance, a Google Sheets. Okay, so we could create a spreadsheet if we want and we could activate, and now we would have this pop-up that shows us how to define the node itself. Okay, so before getting started with this more complicated stuff, let's just delete this and delete this. And let's go to the first demo of the day. Okay, and this one is this diagram you see here. Okay, you see there's 6 different nodes and there's like different arrows, and in this case there's like a node that splits between 2 different actions. Okay, so the main idea here is that we have a form. Okay, this is a form that our clients can send to us. This form has some fields, some information. Okay, here we will see that the different fields that it has, and I for testing purposes fill this form. Here you can see some of my information, my name, my surname, my email, budget, etc. Okay, we will go slower into how to create this form here. And then what I want is just get the data from this form and upload it into a Sheets. Then filtering all the clients that have like a low budget, so I'm not interested, so I just filter them out. And then I will move to a switch. Okay, this switch basically, what it does is that it splits my clients between two different budgets, and I will send a different mail to each. Okay, so this is the whole process I'm doing here. You see, it's quite simple. This is what we're gonna do now. Okay, so how do we do this? Let's go back to my workflow. The first thing, we're gonna just put a name on this, new leads live. Okay, and now let's select our first node. The first node will be basically the form. Okay, let's click here. And as I said, whenever we need to define the node, okay, so the node needs to be structured somehow, this interface will pop up. And it is important to know as well that the data follows a direction. Okay, so every node will have some input data and some output data. Okay, so in this case, the form usually it's the one that outputs data. So it's the starting, or like the triggers, for instance, they don't have data, they are just activating. But you will see that for the rest of the nodes that are depending from previous nodes, they will always have like an input data and output data. Okay. And the first thing is that we see this URL here. This is where the form is activated. Okay. If I just copy it and go to a new tab, I will see that there's like nothing yet because I haven't defined the form yet. And here what I will do is like no authentication, and then services request. From description, are you interested in our services? And a smiley face here, and then add some elements. So as I said before, okay, I will have like my first name here, my first name. It will be a text, and I just set it as a required field. All right, let's go for the second one, last name. And again, a text, not required. Then an email. Okay. In this case, I could maintain the text, but I can select the email as well, which gives more security. This one, I want it to be required. And then I want a budget. Okay, this budget will be a drop down. And I can choose between 0 to 100. Okay, 100 to 1000. And 1000 plus. Okay. And finally, a message. Imagine the clients want to send us some message. So, all right. So the budget will be required. The message won't be required. Okay. So now that I have everything done, I will execute this step, and this form will pop up. Okay. So now I'm just going to say I'm Joseph. My surname is Ferrer. This mail here, the budget, I will say, for instance, 1000 plus. Okay. And the message header. Okay. So now I submitted this form, and I can go back, and I will see that now I have this dummy data. Okay, it is important because whenever you have a node, the output data can be built in 3 different ways. Okay, the JSON, it's the most used one, is how different services, different applications communicate to each other just using JSONs. Then we have a table here. The table basically is exactly the same as a JSON, but has all the data structured in a relational way. So we will see all the keys, first name, last name, email, and the values. So now we have the headers and a column, a row, and then the schema. Okay, the schema basically it's exactly the same. So there's like these 3 ways to say it. Another important thing. Okay, so if now I click execute workflow again, this form will be popped up again. Okay, and I will have to fill again the form, which is quite inconvenient when I'm creating my workflow, and especially if I need to test it several times. So an important thing to do here is just to pin the data. Pin the data means that the form will be using exactly the same data I already filled in. Okay, so I don't need to be all the time just defining different data. Okay, let's go to the sheets. Okay, I have a sheet here. So this sheet, I will be using it for all 3 workflows today. So the first tab here, the first sheet is like called clients. So as you can see here, I have exactly the same headers as I asked in the survey here. And then I have a traditional one, the date and the rejected. Okay, we will see more about them later. But the main idea is that now I want to append the data I just filled in the survey here. Okay, so let's go back and go to sheets. Okay, perfect. And these sheets now, I want what action I want to do. I could create a spreadsheet. I could delete a spreadsheet, but I want to append or update row in a sheet. Okay. So in this case, I have some activated already Google accounts, but we can go to just create new credentials here, sign in with Google, and now all your Google accounts will pop up. In my case, I'm going to use the first one. It is as easy as this, just, okay, the connection was successful, and now we will have a new connection to Google. Okay, perfect, Google Sheets account 5. The resource sheets within document, okay, this is perfect, and the operation append or update rows. So now the document, I will select the DataCamp demo sheet, and then the sheet, the first one, okay, the clients. So now what it is doing is it is just parsing this concrete sheet, and it sees it has a table with all these fields, okay? So what can I do? This second node has this input data here, the input data that comes from the form, okay? So I can just drag and drop first name, last name, then the mail, okay? Then the budget, then the message, right? For the date, I can either choose the submitted at here, so I can just drag and drop this here. But it is important for you to know that we can actually write some expressions here using JavaScript. So in this case, I could just go for activate the suggested functions, and I could go for now. So in this case, instead of just adding the submitted at, I would be creating a new variable that just computes the timestamp from now and just puts it in the sheets. Okay. Okay, the rejected one, for now, we'll forget about it. So let's execute this step. And this should fail. And we have it here. Why? Because we forgot to add the column to match on, okay? So right now what I'm doing is I'm getting some data and I want to append it into a Google Sheets table. But the thing is, like, I haven't told this node how it should append it, okay? So the thing is, like, I don't want to generate duplicates. So I need a way to make sure this row doesn't exist yet. So what it means is I need to do kind of a join with an ID, okay, an identifier. So in this case, we need an identifier. For a client, we could use actually the email, because usually we have one mail per client. But if you have any other better identifier, like for instance the personal identifier of the person, of the client, we could use it as well. So in this case, we will be use the mail. It is enough for now, and execute again the step. So now we should get the output data. The output data here is exactly the data I uploaded to the sheets, okay? So as you see, we have some input data coming from the form, and then we have some output data that differs. It can differ. It could be the same. I could be maintaining all the fields that come from the form, but in this case, I'm just not using the form mode, and the submitted that I change it for now, okay? For this date here. So now we need to check if in my sheets, everything is all right. So let's go to the sheets now here. And as I can see, I have successfully appended my new data. Okay, Joseph Ferrer with this mail, with this budget, with this message, with the date. And the rejected is empty because I didn't add any data in the rejected field. So now, if you remember, what I want to do is I want to get my clients, append them into your sheets, and then filter the clients that are like for a low budget, so basically from 0 to 100. So to do so, I can just select another node, and in this case, this node will be the filter one, okay, filter here. So in this case now, what I want to do is I have some input data, it comes from the sheets, and what I want to do is just keep the data that fulfills my condition, okay? So the condition is on the budget, okay, the budget is here. And what I want to say is not equal to, so it's a number, is not, it's a string, sorry, it's not equal to 0, 100. And of course, it needs to coincide, it needs to be the same as the value that we selected in the dropdown, okay? So now I will execute the step. So in this case, it works. It works, I mean, it doesn't filter anything because it doesn't fulfill the condition. But if here I had the 1000 plus, okay, this client would automatically be filtered. So it would be discarded. Okay, so let's go for it. Okay, so this client now basically interests me, okay? So just to be sure that the whole flow now works, I can execute the workflow again, and I will see that it's perfect. Yes. So now, here, what can happen is that I can have two different clients, right? After this filter, I can have clients that have like 1,000 plus budget. I really like these ones. And clients that are between 100 and 1,000. So what I want to do is I want to send different mails depending on the budget they added to my form, okay? To do so, I can just choose a switch, okay? The switch node, basically what it does, it just splits into different paths, okay? So I can add a first role, but it is by budget. Here is equal to 100, 1,000, okay? And another rule that it will be budget here is equal to 1,000 plus, okay? Execute step. Okay, so now I can just go here, and what I will see is that now I have in this workflow, I'm getting the data from the form, I'm uploading into sheets because I want to keep all the clients, but now I just want to do a second action for those clients that can be of my interest, that are like high budget clients. So I filter them here. I keep only those that are like between 1,000 plus and between 100 and 1,000. And then in this switch, what I do is that each item, I just put them into a different path, okay? If it's like a high budget, 1,000 plus, it will go here. If it's like low or mid budget, it will go on the other way, all right? Okay, so now what we're missing is just the last part, and is sending the mail back to our clients, okay? So to do so, what I can do is just going to my Gmail here, tool, and in these notes, we have different actions. In this case, I want to send a message, okay? So again, I need to select some credential, create new credential, sign in with Google, and again with my mail here. Basically, it says that every 6 months I will have to update these permits. That's great for me. And now let's go back. Okay, it works. So now we have a connection here. The resource is a message. The version is sent to. Okay, so who I want to send this message to? Okay, if you remember, we have the input data here. So now what I can do is just get my email here, okay? Just to make sure, okay, what we are doing right now is that we have connected unintendedly this Gmail to this branch of the switch. So basically we don't have data here, all right? So that's why the switch doesn't give any data. So it is important we use the switch field, because if we use the filter one, it will mean that I will be sending to all the clients wherever they are. This switch won't be working, okay? So in this case, I just want to delete it, and I just want to get this here. Perfect. And now I have from the switch, so I will be sending to this mail, and I will be adding the subject, welcome, okay, to, let's say, DataCamp services. Okay, and the message, hey there, we received your request. We will call you briefly, okay? That's the message I'm gonna send, and I can execute this step, okay? So the execution was successful, and now I have like an ID, and like the output is basically the mail I sent. So if I go to my dummy mail here, I should have one new mail. It's from my other mail here. So welcome to DataCamp services. Hey there, we received your request. We will call you briefly, okay? And if you see, I have this email was sent automatically with n8n. Maybe I don't want my clients to see this. So just to delete this, just let's go to the options, and then it was in append n8n attribution, and we just make it false, okay? So now if I execute again, it will be successful. I go again here, I have one new one, and now there's no attribution to n8n. Of course, we should generate a better mail, okay, a better formatting, but this is the most basic thing we can do, okay? So I just created a form, like my clients are filling it in, and then I'm making all the process until they get like a personalized mail, All right, so now to finish the whole workflow, we just need to get another mail for those clients that have like an intermediate budget, okay? So to do so, we just need to come here, duplicate it, and connect it here, right? So now we will have this switch sending like a different path to each mail, and I can just customize and personalize these mails depending on the characteristics of the clients. Basically, it would mean like the clients that have like an intermediate budget and the clients that have like a higher budget. So if I execute, remember that the data right now it's for 1000 plus, so it will go to the lower one. But now, if I change here the data and I just change it to 100 to 1000, right? Save. And I execute it again. Now it will go to the upper part. Perfect. All right. And just as the last thing about this workflow, if you remember in my sheets, there was like a rejected field. Okay. Right now it's still empty, but it is important to know that throughout the whole notes, we can keep adding and transforming the data. So for instance, in this sheets note, I can use an expression to just say, okay, I'm just gonna reject all the clients that come with a budget between $0 and $100, basically. So I can just generate the Boolean. So with this new expression, I can execute the step. Okay, so now remember, I have a client that comes between 100 and 1000. And if I go to the sheets, it is false. Okay, so basically, this is to show the power of this tool and that we can keep transforming and customizing all our workflow. And of course, we can just handle the data and do with it whatever we want. Okay, so now let's go for the second workflow. Okay. In this case, I have a second sheet with the holidays. Okay, so just imagine I am in the Netherlands and I want to be updated all the time when are the public holidays. Okay, and I have this tab here, and I have a couple holidays that are already detected, but I'm sure there's like more of them. So how could I do this using n8n? So in this case, I'm gonna come back and I'm gonna generate a new workflow. Okay, create workflow. So the first thing is, first, I want to get the data that I've already detected, and then I want to get all other holidays and append them in the sheets, but making sure there's no duplicates, okay? Because in the end, I have like a couple of them detected. So the workflow for this would look something like this, okay? With a manual trigger, we would have first getting the data that is already in my sheets, but then going to an API, an open API that can give us the holidays of the Netherlands. And then here, this note here and this note here will equal code in Python. Okay, it is called function and it allows us to execute some code in Python in the middle of our diagram. Okay, this note here just merges the outputs of both nodes here. So I'm just like basically merging two different paths into a single one, and then I will have this code here to just erase all the duplicates and then append them back into my sheets. So let's go for it. The first step is just adding a trigger manually here. Okay, execute the workflow and it will work perfectly. And then I need to get the data from the sheets, right? So I will go for Google Sheets here and then get rows in sheet. Okay, in this case, the credentials we already did them before. So basically now I'm just going to get the DataCamp demo sheet. This is the name of my Google spreadsheet and then the specific tab like the holidays one. And then I'm just gonna get this data, right? So there were like two different holidays that I had already detected. So I have them right now here. Perfect. Now let's go for the API. Okay, I have already opened here an API. Okay, this is an open API. It doesn't need authentication. And basically it just gives me back the holidays of the country of the end. So in this case, NL is from the Netherlands, but the S would be for Spain, for instance. Okay, so in this case, I just want to get the ones from the Netherlands. All right, so now I come back here, I press add, and now I go for the HTTP request. Okay, in this case, this will allow me to get to generate an API call request. Okay, the URL, I'm just gonna paste the one I copied, and then I need to make some settings. Okay, the first thing is the response. I need to have it into JSON. All right. And then the settings, I want to retry and fail. So for instance, sometimes the APIs fail at some point because they're collapsed, but if we retry, they will work. So I want to retry and fail, and I will allow it 3 times. And then always output data, okay? If basically it fails, I want to pass and I want to see the status, right? But this is something important. If now I execute this, I will get directly a table, like a JSON with all the information. But if you see, there's not the status, okay? So basically, if I press activate this Boolean here, include response headers and status, and execute again, now I won't have a table, okay? Now I will have a bigger JSON with the status in the end, 200, okay. So sometimes when we know that the API is reliable enough and it will always work, we can just omit these headers and status and get the data directly in a relational way, right? That we can generate the table directly. Perfect. So now we have this here, but we don't have it connected. But the thing is, we want to be in the same level as the sheets and depending on the trigger, right? So now we have a trigger and 2 different paths. We execute the workflow and it works perfectly. 11 items here, 3 items here, okay? So now what we're gonna do is I want to add some booleans. So if you remember from my table, there's like some booleans is weekend, business relevant, and global that I want just to add here. And I would use some Python code, okay? In this case, the code node in Python, it's super easy to use. And I'm gonna just copy the code. Okay, it's some easy code in Python, and just for each of the items, I iterate over them and I add these additional flags like this weekend, business relevant. And now I execute, so I will have as the output, the original table plus all these columns, all right? So now I have this information. I have like this path coming from here from the API, and then I have like the data coming from my own sheet, right? So the next step will be merge them back together. Okay, so now I want everything to be on the same path again. So I'm gonna go for the merge node. Okay, the merge node basically allows us to get different paths and put them together. So in this case, what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna erase, like pressing the arrow and erasing it, and we can erase them. So I just want it to be like the input 2 and this one to be the input 1. Okay, if I execute now again, I will have merged everything, but now we'll have 13 items. Why? Because 11 are coming from the API and 2 are coming from the sheets that I already have. But I want to make sure there's no duplicates. Of course, you can just use the Java one if you prefer coding in Java. All right. And now I'm just gonna paste the code here. Basically, we're iterating over the items and we're checking that the ID are different. And in this case, it gets 11. Okay, so now from 13, we're getting back to 11. The original 11 we're getting from the API. And now what I need to do, sorry, like this one. I just missed this one. Yeah, now it should work properly now. Yeah, perfect. And now what we need to do is we need to upload again this data to our sheets, right? So let's go to Sheets, Google Sheets, append or update row in Sheets. The credentials are already defined. So I'm going to go to the same sheet as always. And then from here, the holiday ones. And now it's going to be mapping the table I have there. And if you remember from the first workflow, we just need to drag and drop ID to the ID, date to the date, name to the name, country to country, global to global, is weekend to this weekend, business relevant to business relevant, and fetch that. Execute. And now we will have it. If we go to the sheets, now we will have all 11 holidays here. As you see, it was really, really easy. Just be careful not to close without saving. Always save, like in this button here. And just for you who don't know, like there's like the history version here that we can check, okay? But in this case, we just made it now, but there's no history. But if you keep making changes, you can just go and check all of them, track all of them. And this is the second workflow. All right, now let's go for the third workflow and the last one. Okay, in this case, let's go back to the sheets. We want to have a forecast of the weather in my city, Rotterdam, right now, in the coming days. Okay, one thing could be just going to check online, but I can use n8n to have always updated data in this tab. Okay, so this third diagram will look something like this. Okay, this one will be the longest we've done today, but you will see that it won't be as complicated. Okay, because actually I think the first one would have been the most complicated because it was the first time you were using and you were seeing these kind of diagrams. But now that you understand how they work, every time they look easier. Okay, so let's go for it. Again, go to the personal and create a workflow. Okay, so we will start with a trigger manual here, and we will execute just to check everything is all right. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna get the forecast data, right, with an API. And as we already saw before, we just need to use the HTTPS node here. Okay, let me just get the API code here. So basically now we're gonna just put it in the URL, and I'm just gonna write the Rotterdam city here and just count 1 just to limit the first result. And if you remember, we said that we need to have as a response a JSON. All right. Include the response headers and status. Never error. Okay, we will see why. And then the retry on fail and always output data. Okay, so now we execute this step, and now we're getting a bunch of data actually we can find here with a status. Okay, so now what we will learn is how to check if everything went all right. Okay, so now we have this data here, but the goal is just to leave this process on the cloud or on my virtual machine, but not tracking it down. So how do we log, or how do we recognize something happened? So here we could add a simple if node, right? And this if node, I could go to the status here, status code 200, and go to the number is equal to 200. Okay, execute step. Perfect. So now, as the API request call was successful, we got a 200. It went to the true path. Okay, but imagine that now I just erase. Okay, I just erase, I don't know, like this end here. So execute step. Now we would get, oh wait, like this is not enough for him to make the API fail. So now we would have a 400, right? It is a bad request. It is just not going well. So we execute the workflow again, and now we would have that the final result goes through the second output, through the false output. Okay, so here we can just add an error note. Okay, and then say the geolocation API failed. Okay, perfect. So now we would go like this. Okay, so now we are sure that if it fails, we will note the error. Okay, so let's go back to it. Okay, again, I touch a lot of things. So basically, okay, this first API call is just to geolocate Rotterdam. Okay, to find the latitude and the longitude that we have here. Okay, so now that we have this, we need to just keep going, right? So one other function that is really useful in this kind of diagrams is just selecting the data. Okay, so now we know that in the output we're getting a lot of information, a lot of data, but I just want the latitude and the longitude. I don't care about the rest of the data I have. Okay, so for this we use the set node. Okay, the set node basically allows us to select and edit any type of data. Okay, we can do 2 different things. The manual mapping just means that we can just take whatever field we want, latitude, and then another one, longitude, and this would be it. So from all the data that it's getting, it's just outputting latitude and longitude. Okay, another thing that we could do is just doing JSON. Okay, so basically what I'm doing here is just giving a new name, lat and lon, lat for latitude, lon for longitude, and getting the corresponding data. It failed, I guess, because I copied wrong the whole thing. Now, okay, now I have it. Now we have a simple table with lat and lon. Okay, so now that we are until here, what we're gonna do is we're gonna go for the second API call. Okay, so basically now what I'm gonna do is generate another HTTPS request node, and in this case the URL, the only thing that we have is that in this API what I need to add is the latitude and the longitude. Okay, so instead of just adding the URL, I'm gonna use an expression, and if you see this expression, I will add latitude equal this variable here to this, basically this JSON here with the lat, and longitude, and again the variable that I have here. Okay, and again, just as before, to the response, I'm just gonna add the JSON, never error, include response, header and status, and then always output data and retry on fail. Okay, we execute, and now it worked properly. Okay, we execute the flow and it goes here, and just as before, we can again add an if node here just to check if the status that it is giving to me, status code here, is equal to 200. Okay, it's important that whenever we do like is equal to or is not equal to, we select the proper type. Okay, a string, a number, because if not, it's just gonna make a raise an error. Okay, is equal to 200. Execute the step. Perfect. And again, in here, I'm just gonna add an error. Stop an error. I can raise forecast API error. Okay, here now. And after this, what I need to do is, I have a lot of information, but if you remember, what I want to do is just get these fields here, right? So what I can do is, again, use a Python code. Okay, so I can just go for the code in Python, and then I can use some simple code to get the input data and generate the data I want. Okay, in this case, I'm just gonna generate some new variables with precipitation probability max, temperature, and what I'm gonna do is, like, from all the input, just using Python, I'm gonna select these 4 items here actually. So now we have everything until here. It works properly, like the whole process. So I just need to edit the fields. Okay, edit the fields, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna get the information I want. So in this case, I want the date. Okay, I want the precipitation probability max, I want the temperature max, and I want the wind max. But then I want to add some extra fields. Okay, in this case, what I'm gonna add is, first, do I need an umbrella to get out? Okay, and in here, just as again, we can add an easy function. Okay, in this case, what I'm gonna check is what's the raining probability, and if it's bigger or equal than 60, I need an umbrella. Okay, another thing that we can add, and of course this is gonna be Boolean. Another thing that I can add is like fetched at. Okay, another data that's gonna be fetched at, and in this case, I'm gonna add here like a now, like basically just to select the current timestamp, and then I'm gonna add a wind advisory, just as I did with the umbrella, and with a simple expression here, and just generate. Okay, everything is properly done, and finally I just need to get back to my sheet and append or update rows in sheet. Okay, so again, the credentials are already defined, so I'm gonna go to the document, DataCamp demo sheet, to the third raw temperature, and in this case, what I'm gonna do is just drag and drop. Okay, the date, the precipitation probability max, the temperature max, the wind max, the umbrella needed, the fetched at, and the wind advisory. Execute. Again, I tend to forget this. We need to select like an ID, in this case, a date, because every date will have like its specific variables. And now everything will work properly. Okay, so if we check the whole workflow, it will work. And if I go to my sheet here, now I will have the information. Before I didn't, and now I have it again. As you saw, it just took like around 7 to 10 minutes to just do this like easy diagram, and it was easily. And now we can just replicate it whenever we want. Now that we have finished all 3 workflows, let's try to go a little bit deeper and get more advanced features, okay? I will just mention them because, of course, like learning this tool, it takes quite a lot of time. And so far, we've done quite a lot of work because we've done 3 different workflows using many different nodes. And you've seen it's quite easy, it's quite intuitive, so you can just keep going with it. But the first thing we need to be aware of is that whenever we want to scalate to automate these processes, we cannot rely on the manual triggers, okay? That's the first thing. So before going deeper into the triggers, you need to know that, as I said before, there's like 2 main options, like going on your local machine and just creating your own instance of n8n, not using their cloud-based interface like we're doing now. But in this case, you need to be aware, like you can use Docker, it's not as complicated, but you are the one responsible for the whole setup. Or if you want to use their own web interface, their own cloud resources, we just need to click here in this inactive, okay, to make it active, okay? Why right now it is not letting us do it? Because basically we only have a manual trigger. This means that there's no way we can automate this, okay? This is where other kind of triggers kick in. Basically, we have the scheduler, okay, the scheduler trigger. In this case, if we just leave it here, what we will do is we will schedule a trigger, okay? So basically every day, like we're using the unit as a day and 1 day between them, and the time, for instance, 9 a.m. So I am gonna execute the step, right? So now if I just take this and put it into my first node here, now I will have a trigger, a scheduled trigger that every day at 9 a.m. it's gonna activate the whole process. So now I could go and activate it. Okay, so basically once I activate this, I am making it be automatic and at this given time I scheduled here. Another option would be a webhook. Okay, this is actually quite interesting. And in this case, what we're gonna do is we're gonna just define an open API, a URL, where I can send some kind of data and it will activate the whole process. But again, okay, we will have this here and we will activate the whole process, okay? The whole automation. Different triggers actually can activate the same process. Actually, now it's not going to work because we are waiting for a webhook. The webhook needs to have some kind of trigger to it, okay? Receive some data in order to start. But just for making sure, we can have different triggers that can activate the whole process, okay? Another important concept is the branching. Okay, the branching is what we just did here, but before we did as well with the merging. It's basically separating a path into different paths, and depending on some circumstances or depending on some conditions, just do some actions or others. Okay, this allows us a lot of flexibility to adapt the processes and the automations we are doing into different kind of use cases. Another important concept is the credentials, okay? So for this given workflow, we've used different credentials. This means different tokens or passwords to access specific providers, right? So if we just go, I will save, and if we just go to the personal, and I go to the credentials here I will have all the accesses, okay? I could edit them, I could give some given names, or I could just add, like going here and create credential, I could add different credentials for any other service I want to add. Like for instance, if I want just to use or to include an OpenAI model into my whole process, I can just continue and give an API key here, right? So it is important that we always need to store them within these credentials, okay? Because they're safely stored and there's no way they can be leaked, okay? It is important. And of course, if you're just using your own machine to run n8n, then you are the one responsible for the whole setup and for the whole security as well. So this is the guide of n8n for today. I hope it was useful. You've seen this is a tool that is extremely flexible and it can adapt to any use case. The most important thing is that it doesn't need any kind of technical knowledge. It's like a drag and drop. It's really useful. It's really friendly for everyone. So you can just start thinking on use cases that you could use on your own daily work and just try to automate them using n8n. It is important that this is just a first approach and this is just some first steps. But of course, there's always more to learn about it. And as I said, we couldn't go deeper or to any more advanced concept because in the end, we were just getting started with everything. But DataCamp has many other resources that you can follow up and continue learning about this tool. For instance, there's like a really nice article with some examples and a full guide of the tool. And then there's like a code along to generate an AI agent, which actually is something really useful and that it's becoming quite popular. I'm pretty sure most of you have already seen this kind of use cases. And this is all for today. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned a lot. I hope you now have this curiosity to keep learning about this fantastic tool. And let's see each other in the next time. Thank you so much for staying here. Bye.